guys want the air on or you want it off? You're okay? AC. Because in here it's usually very hot. So I guess we'll leave it on.
Oh man, I'm not fit there. I need to change this.
So I want to thank everyone for coming out. This is our first Living Your Best Life speaker series. So we were really happy that Bryan agreed to be part of this.
Thank you.
Okay. So we'll have to project our voices since this AC is a little loud. So Bryan, so tell me a little bit, tell us I should say, a little bit about your Detroit roots. Like, where are you from? And
Okay, yeah. I'm originally from Southfield. I live in Lathrop Village. So I went to school at Southfield Lathrop, went to Vernon Middle School, and Adler. So I've been around here essentially since for like 17 years, on and off, before I like went away for university. But it's pretty interesting because even though I'm from here, I really didn't take too much time like exploring Detroit. So just recently coming back for the holidays, I wanted to take the opportunity to really reach out and connect with the people that surround the community. So that's why I connected with City Tours Detroit, and then we ended up like touring around the city, and then ended up connecting with this shop here. So that's how we ended up there.
okay, good. So you went to university in was it Philly?
Pittsburgh, University of Pittsburgh. Yeah.
Okay. And so after you graduated, tell us about that.
So I studied marketing and finance. I went to school from 2010 to 2014. And the interesting thing about being in university was, even though I had a business background, I always knew that I always had a creative side, so I was always working on my own projects. So from that, my advisor, I remember the very first time I had an advisor meeting when I first went to visit the university, she said, wow, if you're really into that, we don't really have too much of that with the university, so you really have to get out into the city and explore and network all on your own. So from literally day one, I started traveling around the city, just because the university, it wasn't like a campus, it was like in the city. So like the bus system, you're really like along with the locals. So a lot of that like started, I guess, like my frequent movement. So I would be in class, but then immediately after class, I might go downtown and might be working on a music project, or might be working on getting some shirts made. So just that constant movement, and knowing that I had to get out and network all on my own, it was really, it changed my mindset as far as thinking, okay, well, if I want to accomplish something as great as, I guess, a lifestyle like this, I have to really have to do it all on my own.
You have to have that hustle mentality.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't wait for it to fall in your lap. And I think that's key. A lot of people think, well, why is this not happening for me? They're not out there hustling. They're not wanting it hard, badly enough.
Yeah, we had a lot of different like companies coming to our university and coming to speak, but I never really went to, I guess, like all of the lectures and stuff that they would be hosting, and like networking events there. All of my networking was all on my own, whether it was like online, shooting out emails, or going into the city, going to different networking events just around the city, making my own connections, like strictly catered to what it was that I wanted to do.
So when you got that piece of paper, your degree in your hand, what did you do next?
I went to New York.
Okay.
It's crazy. It's crazy because 2 weeks before graduating, I took a day trip going to New York, and I was in New York the whole day. Before I arrived there, I got on Craigslist, set up maybe like 8 to 10 different apartment appointments, and when I went there, I knew that I would be going to New York. The question of when was really the biggest thing. So I was able to like run around the entire city the entire day, landed an apartment, put a security deposit down. So by the time I went back to the university, 2 weeks later, graduated, and then immediately after that, packed up everything and then moved to New York. And I guess that started my sort of like entrepreneurship journey. And so intentions of moving to New York to pursue anthem culture and just everything that I've been working on since now.
So did you know anyone in New York at the time?
Nobody.
So how did you make those connections?
just online, I guess, like reaching out to people on Facebook, Twitter, and just taking everything that I learned from how I ended up moving to Pittsburgh, not knowing anybody, and then making my network. I was like, okay, well, I guess I could take my skills there and apply it to literally anywhere in the world. And so just went to New York, and it's a bigger market in New York.
Of course.
And plus, I chose New York because I'm really interested in culture, whether it's from music, art, fashion, literature, all of that good stuff. So from that, I was like, okay, New York is really a melting pot. It's a hub for a lot of this stuff going on. So to me, it was a lot of activity that I could be involved with.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do that just immediately out the gate, because not knowing anybody, I was like, okay, well, where's the easiest place where I feel like I can be immersed into the city?
So did you work a 9 to 5 when you got there?
Not immediately.
Okay.
No.
So you're living off of savings?
Savings, yeah. Yeah. So I probably had savings maybe for about a month, to be honest with you, after like putting down the deposit. And I guess I had my apartment for about a month and a half or so, so I maybe had like an extra month after that. But you never expect like the different things that come up. So being in New York, I was actually just telling somebody the story. Literally the first night in New York, my roommates were like, hey, let's come out, let's give you a welcome in New York. And I didn't realize that the subway costs so much, going out costs so much, just moving all around. So I started looking at my bank account. I was like, wow, everything that I had saved for food and everything, I really blew that in like 2 seconds. So from that, I spent the whole summer essentially doing that, just networking. Like I remember I was right in Manhattan, so I lived right by Central Park. So since I really couldn't afford like a bus pass, I didn't want to spend money on a subway pass. I walked the length of Central Park literally every single day, because I knew that I had people that I wanted to meet within the city. I had to get back up to Harlem. I had to get out to all of these different areas around the city. So for that, in my head, it was like, okay, well, it's the summertime for one, so it's nice weather, so you can take the time to do that. And even just not knowing anybody, I knew that being out and about and just walking the streets even, I would just run into so many people and just learn the lay of the land. So essentially the whole summer, it was off of savings, and also like my parents definitely helped me out a little bit on that. But I found out going up until the fall that I had a sublet for my apartment. So the apartment only lasted maybe 3 or 4 months, and after that I was like, okay, well, am I gonna leave New York, or am I gonna try to stay and make it here? And from that point, it was like, okay, well, I think I need to get a job. So from that, I had to humble myself. I was like, okay, well, I do want to stay in New York. I saw a lot of opportunity there, so I started to send out a lot of resumes, and then ended up actually working on Wall Street as a stockbroker, which is like,
what was
really
that like?
Yeah, that was a crazy life. It was crazy. Like I always feel like I lived like so many different lives. So in university, I studied marketing and finance. So I wanted to try out finance. I guess that was just the easiest thing I figured I could do, being in like the financial capital of the world. So I sent out a lot of different resumes, and then I got a call back from the guy's named Steve. And actually, I'm still cool with him now. And he was like, hey, I checked out your resume. You seem like you're really good. You seem like you know your way around New York. Like, do you want to come down and work with? Like, we want to interview you. You sound good on the phones. So it was like, when can you make it? And I remember it was right before a holiday. So it was like, okay, well, I can either come down now or I could wait till after the holiday. But I knew like how fast-paced New York was. So I was like, no, I'm not even gonna wait. I could come down in like 10, 15 minutes. So literally as soon as we hung up the phone, I got on the subway, shot downtown, and put on a suit and everything. Like, it was great. I never wear suits. put on a suit and everything, walked in, interview went great. So it was like, okay, well, you're gonna start on, I guess the day that would have been my interview, I actually ended up starting there. So there it was a collective. It was probably maybe 10 people that started with me, but just on Wall Street, it's literally how you would expect. Like if anybody here has seen like Wolf of Wall Street, then working on Wall Street was literally the exact same minus all of the like drugs, partying like in the
So
office.
you weren't on any yachts or anything as yet?
No.
The guy telling you, pick up the phone, stop
Yeah,
dying.
yeah. So they told us that they took away our chairs, and we had to stand up literally all day just dialing. And me, I was actually the best dialer because I do music. So to me, the trick was as I'm pressing the buttons, I was like essentially making a beat, like playing the drums. So they always told me like, "Wow, how do you dial so quick?" So they loved me. So literally every 2 days, it would be a new person fired, and I was like, "Wow, like I'm not spoiling this opportunity." So I was just staying there on the phones. But so I did that. Maybe it was sort of like an internship period, grace period, to where you were working underneath this guy who was training you, and at the same time we were like picking up all of these tips and tricks of like being around Wall Street. Then we also had to take a test to get licensed. So all the while you're working literally all day. My days were probably from 7 a.m., 8 a.m., and then we wouldn't leave the office till maybe 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Then after that, I would like shoot to like Columbia University, study for the test, wake up, go do it all again. So it was really like back to back. Like it was really a fast life because even the guy that I was working with, he liked to go out, and it was a lot of politics, like being on Wall Street. So you had to find a balance of, okay, I have to study, do well on the test, but at the same time I have to hang out with like all of my bosses.
You have to network after work when you're tired.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So I don't think I slept maybe that whole period of being on Wall Street, but I was there essentially maybe 7 or 8 months. I would think it was through the season, and I actually ended up leaving that because they saw it wasn't the sort of lifestyle for me.
Yeah.
Because even while doing all of that, I still had this creative side. I never put that down. So it would be like I'm sitting in the office in this full-blown suit, and then I'm talking to people that's up in Harlem that's trying to shoot a music video. So I'm like, all right, how do I make this work? So a lot of times I would just like have to literally like sneak out the office. I would go run, put on some street clothes, some jeans, some Timberlands, grab my camera, run uptown, go shoot some videos and stuff. So the sort of, I guess my personality, even though I was good on the phones and just getting started, like I was in the very early stages of after passing my test and everything, of like starting to like having to open accounts, actually talk to people as far as like trying to generate money.
Yes.
But just around that time, it was like, okay, well, this isn't really a good fit. So I had to make a decision of whether I wanted to stay in finance or whether I wanted to go try something else. So I decided I might as well try something else.
So how did you start this with becoming a digital nomad and making that leap to going to your first country and saying, okay, I'm packing up this sublet in New York and this life in New York, and then where did you go?
So that's interesting too. So after leaving Wall Street, I ended up working as a marketing director for a company in the city. So we did like stuff like promotional products, and all the while doing that, since I was in marketing, it allowed me, like the creative freedom to do different things. So I started to really like hone in on, okay, I don't want to do this for forever. So I was like, okay, let me really start to build up like my own company, everything that I'm involved with. So my company, Anthem Culture, I started doing so many like videos, doing merchandise, doing photo shoots, working on music, literally anything creative I could get my hands on, even like working on, doing a lot of stuff online. And so from building that up, I actually was on a music tour performing. So maybe went on 7 or 8 city tour, and I was performing music from one of my albums. And I remember it was a specific moment where we had a show in Toronto, and I sat back one morning after the show. I was like, wow, I had so much fun doing this show and just being out and about. So I guess from that sense, I was out the country at that point, being in Canada, and I was like, wow, I like this feeling, like I'm away from everything. And I was like, do I really need somebody telling me like what to do? Like I know what it is that I want to do. I know where I want to go. So from that, I think as soon as I got back, I put in maybe like my 2 weeks or something, and then I had my apartment in New York, and my lease just happened to be ending at the end of August. So leading up to that point, it was getting ready to exit, but I didn't play it smart, I guess, because I watch a lot of videos about being a digital nomad, and the thing is, everybody tells you to, okay, have savings, sell everything, but for me, it was like so spontaneous, where literally the night before I was supposed to leave the apartment, I still had everything in the apartment. So I stayed up literally all night, and I literally laid out my whole apartment out on the side of the street. So I had like shoes, I had a trunk, I laid out so many different shoes. I broke down my bed, literally threw my bed out, my mattress. So I'm talking this maybe like 2 or 3 in the morning. I'm walking with all of this stuff like up and down the stairs, just put it out there.
So are you a procrastinator by nature?
I am. I always wait till the last moment. I don't know. I like stuff like right before it happens. Like in my head, I have an idea of what I want to do, but as far as like specific logistics, I never think about it until like right before. So from there, I threw everything out my apartment, and then I ended up getting on a flight to Miami, and then so that was literally like I had everything with me. I maybe had like just one little duffel bag and a backpack, and then from Miami, I was there for maybe the weekend, and then I flew down to Puerto Rico. So Puerto Rico was like my first.
But you're still technically in the U.S.
Yeah.
You're still okay.
But it was just enough to be like, okay, I'm out here. Yeah. So I went down to Puerto Rico. I was there for a month.
So when you hit the ground in Puerto Rico, what was the plan?
The plan was actually the guy in Puerto Rico. He owned a hostel there. He was from Detroit.
Okay.
He went to school at Wayne State. So I guess when I shot him an email maybe a week before I was going to Puerto Rico, and I was like, hey, I used to work as a marketing director in New York. Can we do something? And he got back to me. He was like, I checked out your portfolio, because he was able to see everything from anthem culture from my site, all the different videos, all of the activities that I was a part of. And he was like, hey, you look like you have some skills. Come on down. And so we didn't have anything set up when I got there. It was really just get there, and then we'll have a meeting when I get there. So whether it goes good or bad, I'm already in Puerto Rico, so there's not too much you could do at that point. So, but it was all good vibes by the time I got there. And we were able to set up a factor of, okay, I'm going to be doing some marketing for them. I worked on a video for them. So essentially, like that whole month, it was just about like he was taking me around like the city. I was in Agadir. It's on the western side of the country, but we went around the whole month going around different tours he took me. So I did some stuff for like their website talking about that. I shot a video highlighting like all of the amenities in the hostel, and it was a good time. And then from there, I was still, of course, like trying to develop my own brand and everything as well throughout the whole time. But it was a crazy experience, because just being there, it wasn't to the point where I was actually making money. At this point, it was really off of savings, whatever I had, and thinking, in my head, it was like, okay, when I get there, I'm going to get rich just because I'm out and about, I'm actually doing it. But that was not the case. So even after Puerto Rico, I actually ended up coming back to Detroit and essentially like having to start over. But at this point, I already like gave away everything. So I literally was like still living in Detroit at this point with just a bag on my own.
So tell me, what did your parents say when you kind of talked to them about this? You know, I want to start traveling. I'm gonna, try to get contracts and make connections when I go to these places. Like, were they like, are you nuts? Or tell me about that.
Yeah, because I had a really good job, and it was really fun in New York. I always tell people, if I had to work a job, I'm glad I worked where I worked in Detroit. I mean, in New York. So just from that, they were like, wow, are you sure you want to do this? But the weird thing is, my parents have always been, you see they're here now, them and my brother, they've always been supportive of like the different things that I've been a part of. So I guess they didn't ask me too much specifics about what was going on.
It's probably it's better that you didn't know. Maybe.
Don't ask, don't tell. So it was like, okay, you want to go to Puerto Rico, you're doing what? So even so many different things that happen in Puerto Rico, like a lot of stuff I told them after the fact that it happened.
It's probably better that way.
Yeah, but I didn't want them to worry that while I was out there, I was like, wow, I don't know how I'm gonna get food for today, or I'm trying to figure out even like how I'm gonna get this flight back going to Michigan. But I guess just seeing like my overall drive, and just up until that point, you know, it's been at this point it's maybe 3 or 4 years after I graduated college.
Yeah.
So they've seen like everything that I've worked on with my company. So so they said, okay, we see that you're actually consistent with it. You're actually on the up and up with it. So it was like, okay, well, if you think you can do it, go for it. And so they've been supportive through the whole time.
Well, that's a blessing to have supportive parents. Because we had a lot of stories about parents not being supportive. So that's very good.
Yeah. I always tell people whether it's parents or friends, like you always want to have like a support system around you for being out the country, you know, it's some stuff that you might have to do in the States or something like that. Like if you're getting mail, for example, if you run into an emergency or something like that, you always want to have somebody that you could reach out to and potentially help you out.
So do you worry about things like health insurance when you're traveling to all these countries?
Not anymore. Not anymore, because I learned that a lot of people actually do, it's a term as far as like medical tourism or something like that. So a lot of people travel to these different areas. Take for instance, plastic surgery, and surgery in general is really big out in Asia. So a lot of people actually come from here going out there for those specific things. And even like around Latin America, when I was traveling through there, it was so much like dentistry. So you can literally find anybody on the corner, and they're like, their education level is up to par with ours as far as like being able to take advantage of like those opportunities. So I always figure if anything really came up, like you start to realize that stuff is around. But in the beginning, you think that, okay, that stuff is only in the U.S. But no, people are out living about in all these different places. So I was able to, whenever anything came up, I was able to find like different shops and stores that I could rely on for it.
Okay. So you said you came back to Detroit. So how long were you here before you took off again? Did you have to like work a 9 to 5 to make some money and then leave, or?
I got lucky because I had an apartment lease, so I had to pay, because being in New York, you know, the rent is so high. I think my security deposit was, by the time I got my security deposit back, I was like, great, another windfall. I could take another trip and try it all again, see if I can make it happen. So from that point, it was like, okay, I might have been here maybe just a month, I think.
Okay.
And then I got my security deposit back, and then I took advantage of that to be able to start traveling out in Southeast Asia. I think I went from there. So I was out there for maybe like a month and a half, 2 months or so.
And then your money can go very far there because the cost of living is so low. Where were you in Asia?
I was in Bangkok, Thailand.
Oh yeah. So
Yeah.
you can eat for like $1.
Yeah, literally. It was a lot of fun out there. But that's the thing, though. Even though everything is cheaper, it was like you start to think in your mind, like, wow, it's so cheap. I can do this. I can do this. I actually ran around a little bit too much out in Thailand, just trying to like make some things happen. So I actually ended up like really running low on funds when I was out in Southeast Asia as well. Just thinking that I can do everything and like really getting around the city. So I actually spent time there. I took a trip. I was out in Cambodia as well, and just between the two, it was like, wow, I'm not making money at this point. Everything that I've been doing, even though I've been, I guess, like essentially living a nomad lifestyle, it was really just going off savings. So probably that point, I remember sitting out in Cambodia, out on this balcony. It was maybe 2 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't sleep, and I sat back. I didn't have any money. I was like, wow, I really need to make this happen because I'm having so much fun. And you start to see the potential of essentially like the lifestyle. So from that point, was really where I changed my mindset. It was like, okay, well, now it's time to get focused. Like, it's not like the grace period is over, and now it's time to really like get out there. And if I really want to make this happen, I have to learn how to like start making money while I'm out traveling.
So tell us a little bit about how you make money while traveling. I think that's on everyone's mind.
Oh yeah, so I make all of my money online. So I could really be sitting here making money
I know,
to do some things. So that's the cool thing about it. Like I really like the flexibility. But my biggest source of income as of right now is travel writing. But up until this point, like I've tried literally everything as far as like trying to make money online. Like I've done affiliate marketing, I've done social media management, I've done trying to drop ship. I haven't tried trading, day trading, but I've tried so many different things like making money, and I've made money like doing, I guess, like small things here and there, and just a lot of like freelance work. And but I really found out that what really sticks with how I like to move and everything, for me it was travel writing that really like struck a chord as far as like being able to make something sustainable. But just from, I guess, like being in the freelance world and just out traveling, you meet so many people that's also doing the same type thing. So staying at hostels, for example, you meet other people that's managing social media accounts. You meet people that are working with doing like Google ads to get revenue in. But for me, those never really like stuck. So, but you try them and you work with them, you partner with them, you try different things, and it was really just a lot of trial and error. But it was a lot of just freelancing and then just finding out, okay, what part of freelancing am I good at? And then I just continued down that route.
So how do you get into travel writing? How do you get the gigs?
I get a lot of gigs just prospecting online. And I guess just up until this point, I've had such a big portfolio from working on different projects, because it wasn't always just strictly travel writing. Like I might write, I remember I was working actually for it was like a gift website. So I would be writing about like the top 10 gifts you could get for a law graduate, or for the 10th anniversary marriage or something like that. So I've tried doing different stuff like that. But I guess just topic-wise, it really wasn't like interesting to me. So you do it just because
you want that money, you need to get paid.
Exactly. But I really started to like narrow down that I wanted to like stay in the travel niche, just because once I started talking to a lot of different potential clients, it was like, okay, well, what can you show us? So I would show them my website that I've been showing everybody, anthemculture.com, and they would check that out, and they would be like, wow, you've traveled here, you have videos here, you've got projects here, so obviously you've been there. So just from doing that, I started to land a lot more gigs when it came to like actually travel writing. And then from there, I really just started to build up a portfolio of strictly writing with travel. So actually up until this point, maybe 2 years, I've written maybe like 1,000+ travel articles, and it might be like one-off articles, or somebody might send and say like, okay, over the course of this month, can you write up maybe like 100 different like small different little blurbs for their website. But I at this point, I prospect a lot of different places. Upwork.com is a really good place for freelancers. Freelancer.com is another really good one. Craigslist actually is it's a site called Search Craigslist, where when you originally go to Craigslist, it's only like strictly a city. But Search Craigslist, it opens up literally Craigslist anywhere.
Okay, that's a good.
Yeah, so I would just search different keywords there, and even just like browsing through social media. So I would go on Twitter and look up different keywords like freelancer hiring, or looking for travel writer, for example, and just browse and see like who's actually talking about it. So I would do that on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and just from that, you really start to see like, okay, well, what's working? Even cold calling, like I would just literally Google search tourism companies and literally just go through hundreds of pages and literally email everybody the exact same thing, like copy paste, And
I mean, I wasn't the only one.
it's,
Protecting you?
it's the numbers game. You have to realize, like, I feel like it's so many people, like, online trying to do different things. So to me, it was like, okay, well, the consistency of it, the persistence of doing it. So even after sending, like, initial emails, I had a whole system of, okay, I would send this email, I would follow up after 2 days, I would follow up after a week. So it's just really staying on top of it and really treating it like it's a business, and not just like, okay, I'm just freelancing trying to find anything, but really trying to stay focused and say like, okay, well, I want to grow this as a business. So you start to read like a lot of different business articles as far as like, okay, well, how can I really start to grow it?
I think what you said is key, that you are persistent, you follow up. How many of us, somebody has told you no once and you just walk away from it? I know I'm guilty of that. You know, you have to be very persistent. If you haven't heard from them, you have to follow up.
Yeah, and in my head, I always think about like, if they tell me no the first time, if they reach back out to me because they see, like for me, I'm gonna be doing what I do regardless. Like I'm gonna be taking other trips just because I do have such a diverse set of clients and stuff now. So it's like, okay, well, even if this person tells me no, like I still have money coming in. So by the time they circle back around and they end up reaching back out to me, I'll just tell them the price is maybe like 10 times more just for telling me no the first time. So
Yeah, they gotta pay that penalty.
Yeah. Time, value, of money.
Yeah. So with all this freelancing, were you ever scammed? So you did work and you didn't get paid?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That actually, once I really started moving, after coming back from Southeast Asia, came back to Detroit, and from that point I was like, okay, well, I really want to start making money. So that's when I got focused, started doing all of the prospecting and things like that. And that's really, I guess, I started travel writing at that point, and then I ended up connecting with this one website, and I was actually talking about Southeast Asia. So I actually did so much work for them too, and I worked with them maybe for about 4 or 5 months. So from that, I guess like after I got my like first couple checks, I was like, okay, well, it's gonna be sustainable. I can like do a lot more with this. So I actually went on another trip. I started taking my other trips, but from that point, really was my trips began to come based off of what I was earning more so than savings.
Okay.
So just from that, I ended up going down to Latin America. I think I was in Colombia. Then I went to Peru. I went to Mexico as well. And just from going along those couple countries, I thought I had momentum going working with that company, but it got to a point where I was like, okay, send me more stuff. So they would start sending me like so many different articles to send. So every day I would be finishing a project, finishing 2 projects here, a project here. But by the end of the month, I was expecting that money to come in, and then they just stopped responding. So from that point, I was like, wow, the work is already done. I'm already out the country. I already have a trip coming up, but I have to like pay for it, my apartment, how I'm gonna eat and stuff like that. But since the money didn't come in, that actually caused me to have to again start over. So it's crazy because the whole journey, it's been a lot of like resets, but each time you learn different things. But from that point, I learned that, okay, well, I can't rely on just one client to like fund everything. So at this point, I have so many different people where even if this person doesn't pay, I still have so many other things. Or even if they take like a long time to pay, it's like, okay, well, it's not affecting me making the moves that I want to make essentially.
I'm just going to interrupt for a second. We have seats here if you guys want to sit. We have a couple seats. Don't be shy. This seat here for you too.
I did a building.
countries, how do you deal with things like language barriers?
It gets to a point where you just accept it. You accept the fact that I walk outside, I'm not going to understand anything going on.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you have to go outside, you have to interact with people. Like even, it turns essentially everything into an adventure. Like just going to the grocery store, it's a whole adventure because it's like, wow, I don't understand what this is.
Mm-hmm.
Just going to McDonald's, you don't understand the menu, you don't understand anything. So being out in like Southeast Asia,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, it's no way I'm learning Thai being here for a couple weeks. So I was able to, essentially I always like to learn hello and thank you.
Yes.
Because you're able to introduce yourself, and then they actually assume you know the whole language because you're saying hello and thank you. So I've said that to a few people, and then they just start going off. And like, no. Time up. Yeah, but one of the things actually, I've spent a lot of time in Latin America last year because the biggest thing I wanted to do was actually pick up Spanish, and because I really wanted to be able to not only just like be there, but really experience it and really be able to like immerse myself and interact with a lot of people. So I really did a lot of studying. I know you actually use Duolingo. I use Duolingo starting out, and that
So
really
for
like,
us who don't know, what's that?
Yeah.
Is it like an app? Or?
yeah, Duolingo it's a really simple app, and they have like all different type of languages from like Spanish, Italian, Chinese, like really basic stuff. And that was really good just to get like the groundwork to understand, like for Spanish, for example, it's like male, female, when you're talking about different things. So it was really good to like set the ground base for it. But even just being there and being out and about and saying like, okay, well, I really want to make it a point to actually learn a language so I could communicate. So I started watching like so many different movies, listening to music, and even just like reading. I actually do a lot of reading in Spanish, for example. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to spend so much time in Latin America, to learn the language and break those barriers, because I started to realize that creatively that I'm able to get out, work on a lot of different projects once I'm actually able to communicate with people. So now for me, going throughout Latin America, it's just like being here, where I could walk into a shop and interact with the store owners. I could walk into the music studio, talk with the engineer, and like actually get some things going. So now I'm starting to like get friends in all of these different areas that I ask for help. So I've actually had people say like, oh well, if you don't understand anything while you're traveling, send us a voice memo, and then we'll be able to translate it for you.
Nice.
So I've started to meet a lot of different friends that's able to help me out with that. So I've taken advantage for sure.
Excellent. So have you had any other barriers or things you had to deal with, like racism, going to some of these countries?
You'd be surprised how much love you get.
Okay.
Take for instance, I was
They
in,
think you're a rapper?
yeah. I don't know. I stand out somehow. Like
Yeah.
I was just on the subway in Bangkok, and I just happened to be going to a show actually, but that's besides the point. I was just sitting there, you know, like I am now. But because you stand out, like they don't see black people all the time, so people were just looking at you like, wow. So they would literally come up and say like, hey, can I take a selfie with you? So me being involved with the arts, it's like, wow, you want to take a selfie? Well, here's my business card too. Check me out online. Check this out. Check this out. And they're like, wow, you actually somebody. So it just elevates it. I mean, because they don't expect that. And I guess even if the people that they see there, it's just people that might be a tourist, so they won't be there like trying to promote something or tell you to check out some stuff. I remember I had an interview just come out, so people wanted to come up take selfies. So I'm like, oh, well, check out this interview. They're like, wow, you're actually online. We can check you out. So I've gotten so much love, and even being in El Salvador was another big one where I realized that you get so much attention because they don't have darker skinned people there just based on the location of the country. But even so, they were like in love with me for the simple fact of like, wow, you're actually here. Like we want to interact with you. We want to see how you are. So even just being out, you know, they was like, wow, we have to go dance or like tell us about America and stuff like that. But it's interesting because I've gotten like a lot more love just like,
outside of the country
outside-
than being in the country. Yeah.
Yeah, because even working on music, you know, it's so much competition here.
Mhm.
But when you go abroad, especially they know you're there temporarily. They know you're not from there, so they take it as an opportunity to like interact with somebody different.
Mhm.
So just whenever you send out anything, they're like, "Wow, we want to check it out," or invite you out to different
Mhm.
places. Like I've been invited to people's homes, like friends, and hang out with their families and stuff like that, and just talk about essentially just like who I am, being
Yeah.
from the States, different things you would experience there.
Mhm.
So I would think, just in general, a lot of barriers you typically would think, if you really step outside, I guess, of like the tourism realm, you realize that it doesn't exist really.
Mhm.
Like a lot of the
We're more the
stereotypes.
same than we are different.
Yeah.
But we just need to get to know each other.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's more so what it is, like a cultural exchange. So they want to learn about you as much as you want to learn about them. Versus when you're just always around like Americans, it's like, okay, well, now we have to interact about different other stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it really hasn't been too many crazy barriers
Mhm.
that I've realized. Like it's actually the very opposite. Like it's more open
Yes.
as you start to travel around.
So how did you end up making linkages with some of these tourism boards? Because you've done work for different tourism boards in these countries. How did that come about?
It's just prospecting,
Okay.
reaching out to a lot of different people. So I've yet to actually connect with somebody, I guess, abroad and like go to a meeting like while I'm in the country.
Mhm.
But I typically like to wait till after I've experienced the country, and then while I'm there, I do so many different things that I'm able to showcase that I have an experience here. I know different places. I've written different articles and stuff based on here.
Mhm.
So a lot of times, even if I'm working with somebody and they're just asking for like general pitches, I try to tailor it to different areas that I've been to,
Mhm.
with the thought that, okay, well, even though I'm doing work here, I'm getting paid for this project. For me, it's also going to be beneficial, even more so than the money that you get immediately, because you get to grow your portfolio in that arena.
Okay. So you mentioned to me that one of your favorite countries is Colombia.
Yeah.
So what makes Colombia so great?
The people in Colombia, and even just the sort of projects that I did there. Colombia, I've been to Colombia twice. I went to Bogota, the capital, then I also went to Medellin. And Medellin is incredible. Like they call it the city of eternal spring.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was actually interesting, like coming back to the States for like the holidays, because I didn't have any sort of jackets or anything.
You
just
got rid
because-
of all that
literally
the layers.
everything. I left in like the wintertime and then didn't even take a jacket. And then so when I came back, I was freezing. But even now, like I always just wear short sleeve just because you're so used to the weather and everything. But even more so than that, it was like I blended. You see so many, like Colombia, it looks like everybody in here. It looks like we could be sitting in a room in Colombia.
Yeah.
Like you see everybody from the fair skin to really dark. So they look at me up until I start talking, they think I'm Colombian.
Yeah.
So just hanging around like a lot of different people. But then once you start to talk to people, they're like, wow, you're not from here.
Mhm.
Like, tell us your story. But in Colombia, in Medellin, I was actually working with a hostel, and at the same time it was it was like a food, like produce company.
Mhm.
So having connected with him, the guy, I think he actually studied in the States, so he was able to speak English, so we was able to connect on a lot of different stuff, and he was into stuff like stocks and stuff, so we had a lot of different, we had a lot of similarities between each other, so we would always just like hang around, like right around the city, he's telling me like so many different things about it. But we was able to work on a lot of different projects. I actually ended up directing a commercial out there, which I was actually featured in too. So I got to act a little bit out in Colombia. So I was just like, it was just random how it came about. It was just like, hey, do you want to get on this motorcycle and like make this delivery for the camera? I was like, yeah, because you're out, you want to experience all of these different things. So I was like, yeah, cool, I'm gonna do it. I never rode a motorcycle before, but let's figure it out. Right in the moment.
At least it lives to tell the tale.
Yeah.
So through all of this, have you ever doubted your decision to follow this path and what? I want some stability. I want a 9 to 5.
I still doubt it. Like it's this sort of lifestyle, the type of lifestyle it is uncertain. And like that's just the nature of it. So everything happens like immediately, and just being once you get out of like your comfort zone, you never know what to expect. Like as much as you try to plan, as much as you try to save, it's like you never know what to expect. Like it's so many different like random cases, like going to the airport and being a nomad, you know, I only buy one-way tickets. So it's always weird to me when people like tell me like ticket prices, because now to me it's like, okay, well half of that then, because I'm gonna just travel the one-way and then figure it out later. So just from buying so many different one-ways, I would go to the airport, but going to a place like, where was I traveling to? I was traveling to Panama, and they have so many different like immigration problems there too, like that's everywhere. But they have so many problems there where they're like, okay, well, you need more than just a one-way ticket. So I had to like buy a ticket just randomly while I was there. So that, but you don't expect that.
No, and then that digs into your funds.
Yeah.
Unexpectedly.
Yeah, exactly. And even being in Southeast Asia, I remember a big issue was visas. So visas, you know, you can only be in Thailand, Cambodia for 30 days apiece.
So you have to fly out and come back.
So people call it like border runs. So they would literally, they have specific tours that'll take you to the border just so you could cross over the border, get a stamp, then people like get a stamp coming back. So I talked to a guy, he said he actually he was in Thailand, crossed over to Cambodia, just went to the bar. They have like so many casinos at the border, it's crazy. And then he came right back 5 minutes later. Then they give you a stamp that you have 30 more days. So that's a way to sort of like get around the business. Just being there, you actually count in days in your head and say like, I literally have to leave this country in 30 days. So it's a lot of uncertainties, because you're like, okay, well, if I'm here, I have to figure out, okay, how I'm gonna make this trip, go to the border, and then try to come back. I've had people tell me that they didn't know if they were actually going to be able to be allowed back in the country, having like traveled back and forth so much. But just the overall uncertainty. I mean, even just today, for example, like I'm actually going on tour starting tomorrow. I'm headed out to Chicago, and just trying to plan like all of these different logistics is so much unexpected stuff. Because take for instance, I'm going to Chicago. I'm going to a travel trade show, so I'm taking a bus down. Where the bus drops you off and going to the actual convention center is so far. So you look at like Uber prices, it's like, wow, that's a whole nother ticket. So it's still like so much uncertainty with it all. But I guess like once you really start to get moving, you get comfortable with the uncomfortable. So you just sort of accept it, like, okay, well, I'm just not gonna know. So I mean, it's certain stuff that after doing it so much, you could sort of like plan for, but it's a big world, and there's so much stuff, so many moving pieces to it. Like it's hard to really understand everything.
So how do you deal with stuff like relationships? Like, because you're constantly on the move. Like, can you even have a relationship?
You could, but you could check my phone now. I have so many people trying to get me to come out to different countries and come back to hang out.
All these friends everywhere.
It's crazy. Like you try to manage it, but you know you definitely do meet a lot of people. You connect with people, friends, relationships, going out, having fun, going on dates and stuff like that. Like I still do all of that, but I guess at this point I know what I want to accomplish, like in life, career-wise. So I always tell people up front, like, well, you know, I'm only here for a temporary time, so yeah, we can connect, we can hang out, but just know that I'm going to be leaving. So even just while I'm with people, I've gotten conditioned to be to the point where, okay, well, I'm going to be leaving in a little bit, so I might not see you for a couple months, for a year or whatever, but I guess just the way that I connect with people, you know, it's always a case of whenever I see them after X amount of time, it's always just like I just saw them. Yeah. So my sort of like my sort of measurement of time is irrelevant. You know, like even if it's a year, if it's 2 years. I've had people say like, oh, you want to come out to Spain, come out to Germany, and he was like, okay, well, we know that you travel all around, so even if you hit me up a year later, like it's still gonna be all good. Like the offer is still there. So I guess it's just from doing this so much, I've learned to sort of like introduce that up front to say like, okay, well, I might not be here for long, so let's just enjoy the moment, let's have fun, let's connect, let's work on this project, and then after that, if I happen to go back someplace, I have like a group of friends someplace that I can connect with.
So what is your goal for Anthem culture? Where would you like to see?
It was actually like a big dance battle that I had, that they had like a hip hop dance battle, break dancing. So they invited me out to come out to be like the sort of like halftime performance. I had a show out in Bangkok as well, and I actually met the club owner on the flight going there. You know, he happened to make music, so we're literally sitting on this like 12, 14-hour flight, just like banging beats back and forth, sitting there. So I actually done some work with him, and then you start to connect with like all of these different communities.
Yeah, you never know who you're gonna sit next to.
Exactly. So it's just another way to connect with people and just express, I guess, like my journey, tell people what's going on.
So do you plan on doing more with Anthem culture with fashion or anything like that? It's like a clothing line. I know you do T-shirts and hats. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So I actually, well, these are one of the shirts that I have. But everywhere that I travel, I recently started to do this. And actually, you mentioned like the language barrier. So I used to do a lot of merchandise when I was like living in Pittsburgh, going to school, living in New York, working. But since I started to travel, the biggest issue for me was the logistics, trying to figure out like, okay, well, I can't have a big box of clothes anymore. So
you get stopped at customs and like, why are you bringing this into the country to sell?
I always hope they don't open my bag because it's literally going to be all culture shirts. So you would get those questions. Like, what are you doing all of this? But so actually now I donate a lot of stuff. But I started to get a lot of shirts made just based off of like the location that I'm in. So all of the shirts essentially say culture, but on the sleeves I start to put the country that they're actually made in. So this was made out in Mexico. This one here, culture, but this one's made out in Panama.
So we need a culture Detroit.
Yeah, this one's United States. United States. So I just recently start getting back into the merchandise.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I like to do is I have the Instagram live going. Is I started to now connect with so many people from like all around the world that started to essentially follow the journey. So I guess like representing the culture shirts is a way for souvenirs. All of these stamps all around the world, yeah. So it's sort of like a collective item. So I always like print them now in like limited releases.
And it's a good extra source of income. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I do want to like take that up a notch and do a lot more of it. And like I said, I'm just now starting to figure out how to do it logistics wise, and now having different printers in all of these different regions. So it's saying, okay, well, like for instance, I was in Panama, I couldn't ship anything to Colombia, but I had some people contacting me in Colombia saying they wanted some shirts. So even my mom recommended. She said, oh well, maybe if you send it to the U.S. and then she sends it out. So it's just trying to figure out different things like that. But they didn't.
We'll find somebody in Colombia who can print
the
and
shirts.
do the shipping for you.
Exactly. So yeah, I definitely do want to do a lot more with merchandise. And I guess the more I start to travel, the more people I start to meet, the bigger my network, the more I'm able to do it on like a nomadic basis instead of like the traditional having like a big box of clothes in the closet.
Yeah. So what words of advice would you give someone who dreams of becoming a digital nomad or dreams of taking the first step to maybe starting a business or doing something unconventional?
The biggest advice is realize what you want to do, because I watch a lot of different videos, a lot of like day in the lives, and you start to realize everything has its own sort of lifestyle. So like somebody that's working a 9 to 5 lives just their lifestyle is different than an entrepreneur that travels all around. Their lifestyle is different from somebody might be an actor. Their lifestyle is different from somebody from being a nomad. So I would say like really model the sort of life that you want after the career that you want to go for if you're just going after entrepreneurship, and then try to figure out like, okay, well, if I want this, that has to be like the main priority, and then everything else follows. So being a nomad, it's like, even though it was fun, it's comfortable, like having your own apartment, it's not really feasible for the lifestyle because you're never going to be there. So you really always have to stay on the move. So it's like, okay, well, since I can't have an apartment, your money isn't going towards an apartment, but your money might be going towards flights, for example. But you have to just accept that that's the factor of it. So really just figuring out like, okay, this is the sort of lifestyle I want, and then everything else is going to be built up around it. And of course it takes time. So even like being a nomad, it's like I had to minimize, I guess, all of my expenses. I always call it like leakage in your bank account. So you don't want like, you actually just have this happen. It's like just random line items popping up on your statements where it's like, no, you can't have a lot of that happening if you're trying to like be real spontaneous. You have to understand like where everything is going. So it's like, okay, well, to do that, I have to like cancel like my Netflix subscription. I have to cancel like Apple Music, and just you find other sources of entertainment to do that. But for me, like eventually you could, of course, like build up to the point where you could have all of this different stuff. But when you're starting out, I guess I wanted to be a nomad more so than I wanted all of the other stuff. So I started to, I guess, work backwards from that point. So you could essentially do that with everything. So being an entrepreneur, you know, you have to put everything into your business if you want to be a successful entrepreneur. So you're not going to be going out every single night. You're not going to have all of the flashiest clothing. But at the end of the day, when you sit back, you're going to say like, wow, I actually made some progress with my